What if knowing what's wrong isn't enough? What if awareness was never supposed to be the finish line? Today, we live in a world where people can identify their attachment style, their trauma, their triggers, their ADHD, their anxiety, their PTSD, their depression, and whether they're on the spectrum. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. Awareness can be life changing. It can help people feel seen. It can help people find support. It can help people understand experiences they've struggled to explain for years. But here's the question. Has all this awareness made us stronger? Or have we accidentally started confusing explanation with permission? Because there's a difference between understanding why something is difficult and deciding you'll never work on it. There's a difference between knowing your patterns and becoming your patterns. Today, we're talking about the labels we put on ourselves, how they help, how they hurt, and how self-awareness becomes a superpower only when it's paired with responsibility.
Every lesson is a lyric in the universal song. Oh, the lessons of the journey, I'll weave them in my song.
Welcome back to Lessons of the Journey. I'm Coach Jen here with Coach Nicole. Last episode, we talked about the labels we put on other people. Gaslighting, narcissist, toxic, abuse, boundaries. Today, we're turning the mirror around. Because if we're honest, some of the most powerful labels in our lives aren't the ones we put on other people. They're the ones we put on ourselves. And before we begin, we want to be very clear. This conversation is not about dismissing diagnoses. It is not about minimizing mental health. It is not about questioning trauma. In fact, it's the opposite. We're talking about these things because they do matter. Because they matter, we owe them accuracy. And we're also asking a bigger question. How do we use awareness as a doorway to growth instead of a permanent explanation for why we stay stuck? Because awareness is powerful, but awareness without action changes nothing.
So let's start with the word triggered. This is one of the most commonly used words in modern culture, but it didn't start there. The term originally came from trauma research and PTSD treatment. A trigger was something that activated a trauma response. It was not an annoyance, it was not a discomfort, and it was not a disagreement. It was a genuine nervous system reaction connected to a traumatic experience. And those responses can be intense. Rapid heart rate, sweating, panic, flashbacks, hypervigilance. The brain literally responds as if danger is present. But somewhere along the way, triggered became shorthand for, I don't like this. This makes me uncomfortable. I disagree. And that's a problem because discomfort and danger are not the same thing. Growth often feels uncomfortable. Feedback often feels uncomfortable. Accountability can be very uncomfortable, and learning can feel uncomfortable. One of the questions I ask myself is, am I being triggered or am I being challenged? Those are very different experiences. And if we can't tell the difference, we start avoiding growth opportunities that could actually help us.
That is such a great distinction. Am I being triggered or am I being challenged? Okay, another one of these words is trauma. And trauma is real. Trauma does change people. Research shows trauma can impact memory, emotional regulation, your stress hormones, relationships, sleep, and even physical health. Trauma matters. But here's where the conversation gets complicated. Not every painful experience is trauma. Every trauma is painful. But not every painful experience is trauma. A breakup hurts. Rejection, failure, it hurts. Being embarrassed, that can hurt. Being criticized, that can hurt. But painful and traumatic are not automatically the same thing. This distinction matters because when we label every painful experience as trauma, we accidentally send ourselves a message. And the message is this: you can't handle it. But human beings, we're remarkably resilient. Most of us have survived things we once thought would break us. And one of the greatest gifts we can give ourselves is remembering that resilience. We're not denying pain, we're not minimizing it, but we're remembering our capacity. Because healing doesn't come from convincing yourself you're fragile. Healing comes from discovering how strong you actually are.
Very good point. Let's talk about trauma bonds, because this phrase has exploded online. And I'm going to be 100% frank with you. I thought it meant something totally different than what it actually means. Let me explain. A trauma bond is not simply a relationship that was difficult. It's not loving someone who wasn't good for you. A trauma bond occurs when strong emotional attachment develops through cycles of abuse, intermittent reinforcement, fear, and reward. So think about the psychology of gambling. You don't know when the reward is coming. That's what makes it powerful. The same happens in those abusive relationships. Periods of cruelty are followed by periods of affection, and the unpredictability creates attachment. That's very different from I love someone who wasn't right for me, or I ignored red flags, or even I stayed because I hoped everything would improve. Those experiences are real, but they aren't necessarily trauma bonds. And again, accuracy matters because understanding what actually happened helps us heal more effectively. I personally thought a trauma bond was when I go through a traumatic experience with somebody else who goes through a similar traumatic experience and we get bonded.
I can see how you would change
Totally
that.
off on that.
Yeah. Often we sit here and we go, well, why wouldn't somebody leave an abusive relationship? Why wouldn't you just go?
Yes.
Now this makes sense because you are bonded inside of your own trauma to the person creating trauma.
Yeah.
We've talked about this before. Sometimes the unknown is scarier than the shit that you're living in. That does give me a better understanding.
This is like, what's that syndrome when you get kidnapped, but then you fall in love with your kidnapper?
Oh, I don't know.
I would say that's probably a trauma bond because that person actually kidnapped you. But I've heard people say to other people, oh, now we're trauma bonded.
Yeah.
I'm so lost on this one.
We talked about this in the last episode. These words, we've watered them down because we use them so much. The true meaning is less impactful to people because they're just common words now. That's why you thought what you thought, because you heard it in different contexts.
Yeah.
That's a good distinction there. Thank you for that one. PTSD is another one of those terms that have become part of our everyday language. I hear people saying things like, oh, I have PTSD from that meeting, or I have PTSD from online dating. And usually they're joking, okay? But real, true PTSD is not a joke. Post-traumatic stress disorder can include flashbacks, nightmares, avoidance behaviors, emotional numbing, hypervigilance, exaggerated startle responses, and really profound nervous system dysregulation. People living with PTSD are not simply remembering something unpleasant. Their brains and bodies are responding as if that danger is still present. And that's a very different experience. And this is why the language matters, because accuracy honors people who are genuinely struggling. At the same time, PTSD reminds us that healing is possible. The brain is adaptable. The nervous system is adaptable. People can recover, grow, and rebuild. And that message matters too.
Very true. Yeah, that's one I've heard so many times. Oh, I have PTSD for that. I always just kind of go, yeah, I don't think that gives you PTSD. I personally go in my brain to people who've been in wars. My heart goes out to anybody who suffers from PTSD.
Yeah.
So attachment theory has become incredibly popular. And honestly, I think that's mostly a good thing because understanding attachment and attachment styles can explain a lot. Why some people fear abandonment, why some people pull away, why some people struggle with intimacy, why some people chase connection. I know for me, understanding my attachment style actually creates tremendous self-awareness, but also understanding the attachment styles of the people around me. But here's where people get stuck. Explanation becomes excuse. Well, I can't communicate because I'm avoidant. I can't trust because I'm anxious. I can't connect because I'm disorganized. No, Your attachment style explains patterns. It does not excuse patterns. Understanding is not permission. It's information. And information is valuable only if you do something with it. So the purpose of self-awareness isn't to stay exactly the same. The purpose of self-awareness is growth.
Can I tell you how many people sit in front of me? Well, I know why she can't do this. It's because she's an avoidant attachment. And I'm like, when did you get your license? So now this other person thinks they have to tiptoe around this other person's attachment style as an excuse for their behavior. You should just deal with it if you love me. No, not safe. Not okay. This next segment, this is really personal for me. As y'all know, I was diagnosed with a bipolar disorder a lot of years ago. And one of the most important shifts I ever made was changing a single word. I had to stop saying I am bipolar. I started saying I have bipolar. And that might sound small. When I say it changed everything, I'm not exaggerating. Because one statement made that diagnosis my entire identity. And the other, that I have, made it part of my experience. And that's a huge difference. And the same applies to depression, anxiety, ADHD, PTSD, any diagnosis really. You are not your diagnosis. You are a human being having an experience. And while those experiences absolutely impact your life, they do not define your potential. One of the biggest dangers in personal growth is learned helplessness. That's the belief that because something is difficult, nothing can change. It just decides for you that you're not ever going to be any different. And that's dangerous. Got to tell you though, the research says otherwise. People change, brains change, habits change, beliefs change, lives change. And your growth begins when you turn that awareness into action. What are you going to actually do about it so that it's not a limitation anymore?
I had this experience once. I was watching a show on TV and I don't remember what it was, but it was a documentary and it had this kid on there and he was probably 17 and he had no hands, but he would eat with his feet. Every single person who says I can't get past whatever, I'm like, this dude's eating with his feet. Y'all are full of shit. I'm sorry. People are always showing that you can do amazing things. And I love that we're separating. Look, I have this, but it doesn't define me 100%. It doesn't define who I am. And I always come back to that. He has no hands. And his parents said, we're not going to do anything for you. You have to figure out how to function without hands. And he does everything. This kid works. I just think it's amazing what I see people do with physical abilities. And this is dealing with the emotional side of it. I think it's the same thing.
I love that. I do something similar. I've seen quadriplegics on stage giving motivational speeches and like, well, shit. If that person can show up in this manner, and you've probably heard me say this before, we so often fight for our limitations. We really just want to use these things as excuses to stay stuck. And all we're saying, I think, Nicole, is nope, you don't get to do that.
Live into your true potential.
Yeah.
Whatever that is. We're going to talk about ADHD and on the spectrum. This is a conversation that deserves both compassion and honesty. ADHD is real. Autism spectrum disorder is real. Executive functioning challenges are real. Sensory challenges are real. And neurodivergence is real. And for many people, finally receiving a diagnosis is incredibly validating. Suddenly, years of confusion make sense. There's language that helps create understanding. That can be beautiful, but there's an important distinction. A diagnosis explains why something may be harder. It does not mean growth is impossible. And a diagnosis is information. It's not destiny. One of the concerns many clinicians have today is that social media sometimes encourages people to stop at the label instead of asking, now what? The goal isn't self-diagnosis. The goal is self-understanding. The goal isn't identifying limitations. The goal is learning how to work with them. Because people are far more than their diagnoses. Far more. This is about living to your potential.
This matters so much to me for reasons stated above. All of these changes were an active effort on my part. I was required to dive deeper into understanding my diagnosis. And curiosity helped me move beyond. But it was a therapist that helped me understand the difference between have and am. That was life changing, along with these. And again, I'm going to take you back to the 4 agreements, because as we were preparing for this episode, I keep coming back to this. You probably know I live it. These agreements offer such an incredible framework for navigating all of this. Number 1 is be impeccable with your word, especially words you use about yourself. The difference between I have and I am, life-changing. Don't take anything personally. That includes a diagnosis. Don't make assumptions about your future, your capacity, what's possible for you. And always do your best is agreement number 4. That's your best, not somebody else's best. Today, with the tools you have right now, those agreements create space for growth without the shame attached, and accountability without self-judgment.
Beautiful. I would even go so far as to say that some of these diagnoses can be blessings.
Can be.
You talk about people on the spectrum. I think that they see the world differently. I think it can be an absolutely beautiful thing. I think PTSD can teach people compassion for other humans, probably at a level that most of us can't experience. I love what you're saying and what we're talking about regarding, and I'm going to go into my takeaways, especially when we talked about triggered versus challenged. Am I being challenged? I think our entire podcast, Jen, is about challenging people.
Yes.
So if you think that a challenge is triggering, you shouldn't be here. Because we are literally challenging ourselves and all of our listeners to grow. That's an uncomfortable thing. And painful versus traumatic. Everything that's painful is not a trauma. And you're going to go through many painful experiences, probably on a daily basis as a human. And how you deal with it and how you approach it is so important. When you're labeling everything trauma, I think it's very messy and you're setting yourself up for failure.
Absolutely. Agreed. Yeah. My takeaway from every episode we do is how incredibly powerful awareness is, but particularly here that awareness is just the beginning of this particular journey for folks. Labels help us. They don't have to define us. They can explain challenges. They don't get to be used as excuses for the trouble that we are having. This is a big takeaway for me. The difference between a reason and an excuse. We love labels because it validates our experience. And then what? What is next for you there?
When you talk about excuses, I'd like to share a little personal story.
Yeah.
This year, I went on a plane to New Zealand and a plane home from Sydney. And on my flight to New Zealand, I had my husband and I, we were in a 3 section. So 3 seats. We had an extra seat, really nice on a 13.5-hour flight.
Yeah.
Sitting behind us was 3 children. And I want to say they were maybe between the ages of 4 and 8. And they were so well behaved. I couldn't believe it. I think they had 5 kids with them total. I said to the mom when she got up, these kids, I can't believe they just made a 13.5-hour flight. None of them kicked my seat. They weren't annoying and they were amazing. And she's like, I warned them. But I was like, that was so cool because you sit down and you see 3 kids behind you and you're thinking, crap, this is 13.5 hours. So on my flight back from Sydney, also about a 13.5-hour flight, I had this woman behind me and she kept kicking my seat. I was starting to get annoyed. So I went to the bathroom and I came back and I looked at her when I came back and I said, are you kicking my seat? She was probably in her early 20s. And I'm assuming she was sitting next to her mother and her grandmother. And the grandmother goes, oh, she has autism. I was like, okay, I understand that. And are you going to tell her to knock this off? You want me to tell her to knock this off? Who's going to tell her to knock this off? Because I'm not going to have my seat kicked for 13.5 hours.
Oh my gosh.
I was so frustrated because that was the end of the conversation. She didn't say a word to the woman. She's in her young 20s and she was auditory and I had heard her speak. So I'm like, she talks so she can understand you, but you're not going to say something to her like, hey, this is the woman whose seat is in front of you. This is why we don't want to push on the seat. She wasn't kicking it. She was actually pushing my seat. And I was like, this is the end of the conversation. Wait, if this was a 4-year-old kid, you'd tell her to knock it off. You have to converse with her as well. She's fully capable of conversing. And I was a little frustrated because I felt the way the situation was handled was really disrespectful to me.
Yeah, like you're supposed to allow the behavior
Yeah,
because of a diagnosis.
I was like, I'm confused.
That's tough. I think I would feel the same way. And I understand it is a spectrum. But from what you're noticing, even with a child, you have to maybe continue. Hey, we're not going to do that. Oh, remember, there's somebody in front of you. We're not going to do that. Hey, we're not doing that. But you didn't hear any help. There was no help. It was like, well, this is what it is. Good luck for this flight. Oh, it would have upset me too.
I listened to hear if maybe they were waiting for me to sit down. Never said a word to her. She did stop. So I think she understood what I had said to her, but I just got frustrated with the caretakers more so than her, because it was like, okay, if that's the situation, let's take care of it. Let's have a communication. So I got a little frustrated. And then I felt bad because I'm like, well, how am I allowed to feel as somebody who doesn't have that diagnosis? I have friends who have children who are autistic, but I also think there's an accountability piece that we sometimes excuse.
Certainly. And accountability is one of my favorite words of all time because of the weight that it carries. And in the last episode and in this episode, we're really talking about the capacity that you have for your own accountability and those around you. You're asking a great big world to go, never mind, all of the rules of the road go away because you have a thing. And that's just not how a society can function. Can we have empathy for that person? Yes, and you would have. But there's got to be a little give and take in something like that. So I understand your frustration with the caretakers, because that diagnosis shouldn't end up in your lap as a new thing that Nicole then needs to tiptoe around, because you are having your own human experience. We all got to work together in these types of situations.
Just so everyone knows, I am the kind of person, if you have a crying baby on a plane, I will walk the baby up and down the aisle for you. I will help because I know what that feels like. I'll take the baby for the mom. I'm there to help in the world. But when I get well, that's just how it is, and it is how it is, and I'm looking at the situation going, it doesn't feel like that's just how it is. It feels like you're just not willing to work with me on the situation.
Yeah, that's a difference.
Now I get frustrated. It sort of became that's the excuse, but maybe somebody has some input that they want to give. Please feel free to leave comments.
Take it. And leave them in the comments.
Take it. Yeah, because I felt the frustration. I also felt compassion for her because I thought, why aren't her caretakers telling her what's right and what's wrong?
Yes. That's really a disservice, I think, to the person
that's
experiencing this.
Yeah.
And I know we want to protect our kids. I understand where it's coming from, but I don't agree with the way that it was laid out.
Yeah, I just felt like I would have handled it very differently. But then again, I'm not in that situation. I don't know what it's like. Maybe there's something going on that I just totally missed. I want to have compassion for people. I absolutely do. I understand we all have things we go through. I think my compassion level is high, but I might be missing something.
Well, in a closed environment like a plane, that's a whole heightened sense of other stuff. We all have to figure out how to get along. I am heavy on accountability in my house. It is a value. It matters to me how I and the people that I'm rearing show up in this world. Yeah. And being considerate of other people, it also matters, no matter what labels you're showing up with. Yeah. So sometimes that means a little extra work for me to go, okay, this is how I'm showing up. What do I need to do so that I'm not a massive burden on anybody else? Sometimes stuff spills over, and I get it. We're talking about accountability, responsibility, discernment with how we take these things out into the world. I think all of that matters, and that's this conversation. These are important things that really, truly impact people's lives. And when we disintegrate the meaning,
I wish there was a karma police. So I want the karma police to come to the people who go, oh, I'm so depressed today, to just let them feel depression for 10 minutes, like true depression for 10 minutes. They will apologize for having ever used that word.
All of these words that we're
absolutely
talking about. Yeah.
Have you ever heard about people who come to this country and they're like, you guys say I'm starving when you're hungry? Because there's other countries that would never say the word starving. But there's a lot of other countries that are like, you guys in the US, you say starving. We don't use that word that
We are
way.
massively extreme in
We
one way or
are.
another.
We
like,
are.
Americans are so dramatic.
So dramatic. That's why everyone around us is toxic. And you're all narcissists, but not me, of course.
Yes.
All right, let's go into our questions.
Oh, fun. I have a would you rather for you today, Nicole.
Oh.
This is funny, so I just want to
Okay.
know the answer because I know that you do Zumba and all the fun dance activities.
I do.
Would you rather
Yeah.
have to communicate solely through interpretive dance for one day
Oh, thank God it was only one day.
or speak only in puns for 1 week?
I would so do the interpretive dance because that would probably be the funnest day of my life. Oh my gosh, that would be so funny. I would hire my husband to just videotape it the whole day. Honey, you have to stand there and videotape every interpretive dance.
Have you ever watched the judges on an interpretive? Well, so what I think she's expressing here is that
No, I've
she
never
just
seen-
really
is this a
dislikes
thing?
pepperoni on her pizza.
I would love to dance around all day long. I saw a video the other day. It was this guy dancing, and it was basically, how long do I have to dance before someone will dance with me? I was like, I would have been dancing with the person. I would have
Me
been
and
the
my
one
kids
like,
would
oh
have
my
been-
God, they're dancing. Let's go. Like, I would have just danced. I don't think anyone should have to dance alone. Someone should always just dance. Why not? I love dancing.
Yes,
I think it'd be
let's
so much fun. But
dance more.
interpretive dance, like, I'm not sure I'd be very good at that. But boy,
Doesn't
would it
matter.
be worth a laugh.
It's
Oh my
interpretive. You
gosh.
could be amazing at it and be like,
Ugh.
you guys just aren't interpreting it the right way.
Oh my gosh, that is hilarious. That's an interesting one. Okay, my question for you, Jen, is how would you feel if you found out that you were the star of the Truman Show?
Oh, everything would make so much sense. I would be like, now it all makes sense. Yes. I knew I wasn't crazy. I would feel validated, Nicole, if I found out that I was the star of the truth.
I knew someone was messing with me this entire time.
I would go back and be like, that one time where I was like, really? And you guys were probably up there going, well, let's see how this one goes. Yeah, no, I would feel validated.
Oh my
Yes.
gosh, that's hilarious.
Yeah. I might feel a little robbed, but I think the primary emotion would be validation.
I have to tell you what my answer is too. I'd be like, are there cameras in the bathroom? That would be like my only
Oh, if you gave me too long to think about it, I'd be like, oh shit, were you watching all of it? Can we forget about that one time?
Now I feel
where...
a little violated. Oh my gosh. Okay.
Good one.
Oh, we have to stop. Okay. So before we go, we want to leave you with something to think about. Throughout this episode, we've talked about labels. Some of them came from professionals, some came from social media, some came from our families. And some are labels we've carried for so long that we've stopped questioning whether they still belong to us. And that's the thing about labels. They can help us understand ourselves, but they were never meant to become cages. A diagnosis can be helpful if it's from a professional. An explanation can be absolutely helpful. A framework can be helpful. But none of those things were ever meant to become the ceiling of your potential. Because at some point, every one of us has to answer a question. Am I using this information to understand myself, or am I using it to limit myself? Maybe you're someone who has ADHD. Maybe you've experienced trauma. Maybe you've battled depression. Maybe you've lived with anxiety. Maybe you've been diagnosed with bipolar disorder. Or maybe you're navigating life on the autism spectrum. Those things matter. They are real. They deserve compassion. They deserve support. But they are not the most interesting thing about you. They're just part of your story. They are not the whole story.
Oh, this matters so much. You are not your diagnosis. You are not your worst day, and you are not your trauma. You're not your attachment style. You're not the thing that happened to you. You are the person deciding what happens next. And that decision gets made every day. Not once, every day. Every day you get another opportunity to learn, heal, grow. another opportunity to become someone you couldn't have imagined 5 years ago. And maybe that's the real purpose of self-awareness, not to tell us who we are, but to help us discover who we're capable of becoming. So thanks for spending this time with us. Keep learning, growing, and becoming. And we'll see you next time on Lessons of the Journey.
Bye, everyone.
Write your lines with passion, let your spirit freely roam. The lessons of your journey will lead you safely